So for today, we're going to talk about translating verbal expressions into variable expressions, and we've had a little bit of an exposure to this, but what I want to do first is get us warmed up by starting with these expressions here. So based on what we did in the last class, distribute, combine the like terms, and get your final answer. And what I'll do is I'll pause the video and then I'll put up the answers. Okay, so here are the answers for three of them. And if you'll notice, I purposely skipped over number 3 because there's a couple things going on in number 3 that I wanted to address that you might have seen in the homework. The first one is here. We have parentheses around this grouping here. But when there's a number out front, like there was here in number 1, we multiplied the 5 through. There's nothing out in front of the first one, so it's simply 11x minus 5y. Sometimes we just put groupings of parentheses around groups that we don't really need help with. But when I'm looking at this one, I'm subtracting this entire thing. So it's a habit that people recognize, just subtract the 2y. But we also forget we also have to subtract the other one. So there's a couple ways to think of it. One is thinking of it as a negative 1 multiplied by everything. So negative 1 times 2y is negative 2y. Negative 1 times x is a negative x. We can, and remember, any time we have a 1 in front of any number, any variable that doesn't have a number. Another way to think about it, though, is what I do is I typically just say every time I see a negative in front of a quantity, it changes the sign of everything inside. So negative, and this is positive 2y, positive x, so now it's negative 2y, negative x, and again, 1x to help myself out. So then after that, just like with the other ones, we're going to combine like terms. And I know in class I used a highlighter, but now I'm just going to use pencil here. So I've got a positive 10, excuse me, positive 11 and negative 1. Is a positive 10x, negative 5y, and negative 2y is a negative 7y. So this is just a little reminder on what we're doing, what we did last time. So what we're going to look at now is the idea of translating algebraic expressions into, phrases into algebraic expressions. There we go. And if you'll notice, it says go back to day 1 and find the translation cheat sheet. Well, that is this page here, where we had all these different things, and remembering that when we see the less than or the from or then the words into, so less than, from, and into, those are my red flags. Those are the ones that say, hey, I've actually got to write them in opposite order. So remembering this is what we did all the way back in day 1. 2 less than 13 means the 2 is written in the back. 2 subtracted from 10 means the 2 is written in the back. And then 6 divides into 48 means the 6 is in the back. So everything else is written in the order that it was said, except those 3 keywords, less than, from, and into. All right, so going back into the notes here. Now we're going to do the idea of parentheses. So remember, when we say 6 times 5, it's really easy. We just go 6 and 5. I can go 6 times 5. But again, we don't want to do the little cross x anymore because it looks like the letter x. If we want 6 times a number, I can go 6x. I can choose any number, 6n, 6d, 6 whatever. But in each of these, this is 6 times an actual item. 6 times an actual item. But if you look at this, this says 6 times another operation. This says 6 times another operation. So when it's a value, operation value, we're just going to write it out. But when I have 6 times another sum, that's when parentheses have to happen. So it says 6 times the sum. Well, the sum tells you what's going on inside here. So 6 times the sum of a number and 3. Again, when we had here, this says 6 times the product. So 6 times something going on. Well, if you remember from back in day 1, product meant multiplication. 6 times this product of a number and 3. And of course, we like to write 3x, not x times 3. Either way, I would take it. So looking at, again, 10 minus a number. Okay, item minus item. This is item minus a whole other operation. So this is 10 minus a whole other operation. And that operation tells you what happens inside here. Again, 10 minus but a whole other operation. The difference, so that's subtraction, between 4 and a number. Now we write it exactly the way it's written, 4 and a number. It's not less than, it's not from, it's not into, so I don't switch the subtraction. So this is saying the quotient. So I know I'm going to divide a couple of things. I'm going to divide the sum of a number and 3 and the number. Literally writing these little things down below will help me chunk it out, because when I look at this entire phrase, I don't know where to start, but it says two things are going to be divided. The sum of a number and 3 and the number. And again, division can be also written vertically, sum of a number 3 divided by x. I would have taken either one. So sometimes we just have to chunk these two out, and it helps a lot. So I want to go further into the course pack to this worksheet. I know this is going to be a lot of practice for us, but I want to skip down to page 53. So we're going to walk through each one of these. 5 subtracted from a number. So I know that's subtraction, but that's also my red flag. And the other cool thing, though, is that this is an item subtracted from, so I know it's minus an item. So 5 subtracted from an item, but again, being the red flag, I have to write it in the other order. 7 more than a number, well, that's just item plus an item. And I default to X. You could pick any letter you want. This next one says item divided by a whole product. So this one needs 10 divided by parentheses. And I said product, I meant sum, apologize. So that means that's what's happening inside. So product, that means something's getting multiplied of 5 and this. So that and sometimes can separate the two things that are getting divided or that are getting multiplied or whatever. So the product of 5 times, well, the sum, again, is what goes on inside the sum of a number and 3. Product, so two things are getting multiplied. A number and 17. Okay. A number times 17. Item and an item. And of course, I like to write 17x. I like to write my numbers first. Now this one was on your cheat sheet, but twice a number, that means 2 times something. Subtracted from 20. But, aha, it's my red flag, so I've got to write it in the opposite order. And as we're going, you can pause the videos and quiz yourself, see if you can't get the exact same thing. So we have 7 added 2, so that's easy. 7 added 2, the product of 4 and a number. Maybe just put parentheses around things to remind yourself to put parentheses around things. Now, some of you might have a little more experience in math say, well, the parentheses don't change anything. And that's true. I'm just getting used to the setup. So the product of this and this. So 7 and x added to 100. Twice a number decreased by 17. That's not a red flag, so I'm going to write it out exactly as what I just said. Red flags, the less than, the from, the into, we flip. This one isn't asking for that. Next one says a number decreased by 14. Okay, it didn't ask me to decrease by a sum or a product or any operation. And increased by 5 times the number. I realize it can combine like terms, but today's objective is just to get these phrases out the way they're supposed to be. Okay, the product of, so I know I'm multiplying. Oops, looks like subtraction. So I know I'm multiplying two things, of -6 and the sum of a number and 15. So -6 and the sum, so that tells you what goes on inside of a number and 15. So when we had twice a number, it was 2 times x. This is twice a whole operation. Twice 2 times a number and -5, or I could have written x minus 5. The quotient of 45 and the product of a number and negative 5. So I know two things are getting divided. This is 45 and the product of a number, oops, it's product, so I almost read addition in there, of a number and 5, and a number and negative 5. There we go. So the quotient, again, that means I'm getting divided of 10 times the number, or I could have done parentheses, and negative 4. So 10 times the number and negative 4. So this is kind of the demo. What this is just tons and tons and tons of practice. So if you go back up, I know I'm going back and forth here. If you go back up, I want you to start at the top of page 50 and practice. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video and I'm going to put up all the answers. So once you've got page 50 done, unpause, and then I'm going to give you a little warning and go on to page 51 and page 52. This is the answers to page 50. In a minute, I'm going to scroll to page 51. So pause the video now. So this is the first part of page 51. And now scrolling on to page 52. The last page is to look at, I believe it's page 54, but it's the one that looks like this. And this is a nice little worksheet just to practice. So what we have then is we have just matching items here. Let me see if I can draw here. And we're matching one item to another. So when I'm looking, but it's only in each quadrant. So the thing that's really cool is I don't have to match everything up here to everything way down here. It's only this, each quarter of the page. So we're looking at 3 times the number. Well, 3 times the number is going to be matched to 3x. So this means that that's box 3. So when I'm looking down at the bottom, in box 3, I'm going to put an E. So if I'm looking at 8 more than, so 8 more than 3 times the number, then I can simply write it like that. So 8 more than, and again, addition is commutative. If you remember that, we can write them in opposite orders. So this is 8 more than 3 times the number, which means that in box 12, I'm going to put an I. Now I'm going to go to this one because this is one, this bottom quadrant is one that gives a lot of people problems. So this is 9 meters shorter than. So remember, that's another word for less than. So less than means this 9 is going to be in the back. Twice the length minus 9. It's 9 meters shorter than or less than twice the length. So that means O is going to be right here in box 23. Twice the sum, I'm going to go up here to this one, twice the sum of 5 times a number and 8. So twice the sum of 5 times the number and 8. So the sum of 5 times the number and 8. So that's going to be, C is going to be 13. So that's how we're going to do this one. And this is just lots of practice. There's not a real hard concept. It's just getting used to it and putting values in. So hopefully once you do all the other practice, it'll be a lot simpler. But what I'm going to do in a moment is I'm going to write in all of the letters down at the bottom so you can check yourself later. The other thing that I want you to make sure you do is turn your homework into Moodle since we didn't meet today. I will see you next week. She was practicing for a moonshot. There you go.